do you ever have any type of battles with, quality over quantity?
Definitely have those battles. And you have to be honest with yourself as an artist. And if you hold yourself to any standard, quality assurance, quality control is always going to be something that you place a premium on.
We got the NBA playoffs. The first round is underway. Well, give me some of your picks starting in the Eastern Conference.
I think Brooklyn is the prohibitive favorite. I think they can afford to lose one of their big three and still be the prohibitive favorite. Like, you've never really seen like that collection of talent.
What's the better series, Snowfall or The Wire? What's your take on that?
Oh man, you hitting home runs all day. That's actually okay. I'm gonna go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Don't Sleep on the Couch podcast. Today we have another artist spotlight, and like we always do at this time, we here to bring you guys beats, bars, artist story, and we're trying to put you guys on to artists that we've come across. Maybe we're late to it. Maybe you guys already know who these artists are, but we want to highlight them and give them a platform to share their story and share their music. And that's what we all about, growing organically and putting people on. So today's artist, we have ABEL MERI from the DMV area. I mean, in just his short year of seeing all the projects he's put out, man, and he's put out a lot, and we'll get into that. I mean, he has articles in The Source. He also has articles from hip hop since 1987. I mean, New York Weekly. I mean, this is 50. Like, this is just some of the things he's done in his short year on his grind. So without further ado, welcome to the couch for the first time, ABEL MERI.
Bro, what up?
What up, bro? What up?
Appreciate you having me on, brother.
Hey, anytime, man, anytime. How you doing, good brother?
Can't complain, man. I'm blessed.
Absolutely.
Can't complain about a thing.
Yeah. So, man, introduce yourself to the people, man. Let them know where you from. Just kind of your story, how you got started in hip hop.
Yo, I take it for granted that people know what the DMV actually stands for. Sometimes people, when you say you're from the DMV, they think you're about to go get your license renewed. Which I can play on that because I'll be like, yeah, we got lines. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how we do. But DMV really stands for DC, Maryland, Virginia. And it's kind of like the metropolitan area. So for you, you're from New York, so that would be like the tri-state. That's like New York, Connecticut, New Jersey. So I've been here since I was 12 years old, originally from Ethiopia. I was born there, but I left when I was 3 years old. Lived in the UK for a couple of years. Lived in Bahrain, which is off the coast of Saudi Arabia. It's a small island the size of the BBC. Lived there for 5 years. Lived in Los Angeles during the early 90s, and then I've been in the DMV area since then. So this is where I call home. This is where I represent.
All right, so world traveler, man. What took you around the world in so many different states and so many different countries?
Initially, it was my father was in pursuit of higher education, and there was some political unrest in Ethiopia in the late 70s, early 80s. So it was a combination. It was an opportunity to get out of the country at a good time for him. And then it was kind of, after that, it was just kind of where his work went. So it would be similar to like an army brat. They kind of just follow wherever their parents get stationed. So it was a great opportunity to see a lot of cultures early on. Like a lot of people don't get to travel until they're older. So they don't get the benefit of seeing all of that stuff, going into different experiences in their life. It's always kind of like looking back and saying, oh, okay, now I get it because I traveled. I can kind of connect the dots retroactively, but I was able to get it in early, so I was able to apply all the information I absorbed and experiences. And I think it helps artistically as well. You can draw from all these different cultures, and you could paint a really unique picture and a value proposition as an artist. You can offer things that other people may not be able to offer in music.
So in all your travels, man, I always ask our guests this, like, what was some of your first few hip hop albums that you brought with you in your travels that you listened to all the time?
Yo, you know, the irony of it is I was late to hip hop because the places that I was living and traveling at the time, they were more pop music, right? So I had a George Michael and a Madonna cassette before I had an NWA cassette.
Wow.
I had to play catch up when I came stateside. So I was super Michael Jackson, like Madonna. Just imagine the '80s pop, like things that were on MTV, right? Because we had limitations on what we could actually see in these different markets, right? So it wasn't like today where you could go on YouTube and you could just punch in like some unsigned artist that's just, you know, kind of breaking ground yet. They had to have made it to the point where, you know, CBS and Viacom was behind them. So when I remember having a conversation with some kids when I was in 7th grade, and they were rattling off all these names of artists in hip hop, and I had no conception of any of these guys. I was like taking notes and writing down like these names. I got to figure out who these people are. And then I started like reading Word Up magazine and like all those kind of like publications because there was no Google back then. And I had to like educate myself. The first song that I remember that I like actually fell in love with in hip hop, and it was like the most transformative, impactful point was, and this is gonna sound crazy, it was LL Cool J, Roundaway Girl.
Wow. I mean, that's not a bad song to start off with, but going in your catalog, that would be, that's crazy. That's crazy that would be the first one.
Especially because that was the song that kind of like a lot of people look at LL's his history and they say that was kind of where people started questioning him because he went too far to the pop side. And that was a time where like NWA and Public Enemy were kind of coming up. And like Rakim, like end of the '80s, early '90s. So hip hop was kind of sounding a little hard, like super hardcore, like around that era. And for me, it was like a friendly introduction because of the hook and because of the melody on it. It sounded like a pop record. So for me, it was a soft landing spot for hip hop. And that was the song that I remember the words like verbatim. I used to record it when it came on the radio and I could play it back over and over. I used to wear that cassette out. But that was the song that made me say, he's telling a story. You know, it's not just like a melody and a song that's being performed. This actually looked like, it sounded like something that he was living, like he was just talking day-to-day life. And I was like, I never heard that in music. It always seemed choreographed and contrived, especially when you come from like pop music. You know, they don't write their songs most of the times, right? Like, if you hear Beyonce or Michael Jackson wrote a song, that's the exception, right? Like, oh, wow, you know, they're super talented. But with hip hop, everybody's writing themselves. When you hear somebody didn't write it, it's like when you say, oh, okay, now I got to kind of reassess this person. So the honesty and like the journalistic integrity and ethic that came with it, I think that's, looking back, I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, that's what made hip hop so special to me.
So I won't let you hang out there with the LL song. My introduction was MC Hammer. The first Hammer album, Gaining Momentum, you know, all of that, man. Like I thought Hammer was the guy, man. Like, that's well before the Jay-Z's, the Nas, Cool G raps, well before they invaded my head. It was MC Hammer for me, man. So kind of a similar introduction where it's just you loved it for just what it was and not necessarily all of the stuff that we get into now, whether this guy writes, whether this guy raps soft. It's just you liked what you liked at the time. So,
and I think, you know, if memory serves me correctly, those two songs were on the radio around the same time.
Yeah. 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 No, I think 92, something Hammer 90, 92, around that.
92, okay.
For people that are unfamiliar with what you do, like I told them in the intro, you probably one of the hardest working dudes I know. Probably a couple weeks ago we talked and you were like, hey, I'm about to drop Artificial, which is the most current album that you have out. Maybe I'm gonna knock it out in a week. You know what I mean? I like to wait till the last minute to put pressure on myself. So with that said, man, Artificial is the most current one. Soul Plane is what I've been listening to, and now Artificial just came out, what, Wednesday, yesterday, as we're recording this. And then Raise the Bar 2 with Numbs is what, I've been familiar with you with. And then I'm doing my research on your back catalog, but those three are the most recent ones that I'm listening to. How do you, what spawned this type of work ethic from 2020 up until now?
That's an interesting question. I took a hiatus from music for a good 10 years there. And in that time, like I never stopped thinking like an artist. So I had all these ideas and these thoughts, and I just never actually recorded them. I never put them to music. And I think that in those 10 years, I lived the most and I grew and I evolved the most in my life. That's kind of like an inflection point for me. And like with maturity and perspective, you're able to see things that you saw but you didn't understand at the time you're experiencing them. So I think it was a combination of that as well as a level of mastery that I hadn't ascended to. I remember people used to talk a lot about Jay-Z now writing lyrics. And I used to think that he was not being completely truthful. I didn't think that there was any way that you could have the level of intricacy and depth and the layers that he has in his music without actually sitting there and writing it or rewriting it. But fast forward, I just realized that I hadn't put in enough time to where, that jump shot became automatic, right? Like they remember that shot that Jordan hit on Russell.
They don't remember how much he practiced it.
How many shots did it take to make that, right? Like it took thousands and thousands of shots for him to be able to hit that in that time, right? So I think that time away that allowed me to be able to grow as a person and then also just sharpen my skill set to a point where now, like, if I have an idea and a thought, I can express it immediately, musically, right? Whereas before, I had to take a concept and kind of whiteboard it and be like, all right, well, this is what I want to say. What's the most clever or interesting way that I can say it? How can I deliver this and package it in a way where nobody else has actually put it this way? Like, there's nothing really new on this. We're all saying the stuff Nas was saying in Illmatic. We're just framing it differently. And we're saying, oh, I'm seeing it from this angle, and we're presenting it and kind of repurposing it. So to answer your question, that's like a long-winded way to get back to what you were saying, but it was a combination of evolving as a person and just ascending artistically. And then those two things, and then just having the technology at my fingertips now. I don't have to book studio time. I don't have to wait on an engineer's timetable to mix and master things. I can literally pull over if I have an idea and lay down a song and mix and master it. 30 minutes later, I have like a song, right? You do that 10 times, you got an album. So it's like all of these things kind of coming together at the same time. And I'm trying to hit the gas all the way to the floor until I keep going again.
You feel like you're making up for lost time in a way from the time that you took off?
Definitely, yeah. I think I am. And I also think that I'm able to connect dots that I wasn't able to before. And like I'm able to see angles that were there, but I wasn't able to perceive the right way. So the same idea, thought, concept, I can frame it 50 different ways now. So it just opens up how much content you can create. Like when you can see things from, it's almost like you can't see everything. You can't see all the angles, all the colors. Like if you imagine life as a spectrum, right? Think of like what the TVs used to look like in the 80s versus what they look like in the 2000s and now what they look like. It's 8K, right?
Right.
There were colors that you didn't even see. They weren't even on, they weren't visible, right? So artistically, I feel like when you invest in your craft and you hone your skill set, you get to a point where you can see all these different colors and you see all of the little degrees in between each color. So if you have the time and the energy, then the content is not really going to be a limiting factor anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's kind of like what's driving me right now.
So with the content, like me and Prez have this argument all the time about like certain artists we want to come out more frequently. We want them to put out the work. Then some artists we're more cool with. So you get the Coles, the Kendricks. Then you also, you know, have Wayne back in the early 2000s where he was hitting you over the head with mixtape after mixtape. Then he was dropping albums. So for yourself, do you ever have any type of battles with, you know, quality over quantity, or like, do you have those battles internally, or are you just like, F it, I'm putting it out and letting the people decide?
Definitely have those battles. And you have to be honest with yourself as an artist. And if you hold yourself to any standard, quality assurance, quality control is always going to be something that you place a premium on. So I definitely look at everything that I put out. And if it doesn't meet the standard, like I set a goal for myself. I wanted to do an album in month of 2021. The caveat in that is if the project I'm putting out today isn't as good or better than the project I put out last month, it's not going to go out. So I have to have those conversations with myself, and I have to be honest enough to really assess that. And like strategically, if you're signed to a label, right, they would tell you that it's not a good idea to put out content because you step on your own toes, right? Because you're trying to sell this project that you put out last month, and now the attention is going to be taken away from the one that you put out last month to put out this month. The counter argument for that is we're living in a society where the shelf life of art and music is so short now that it's actually more risky to not put out the music because you're only as relevant as the song you dropped last week.
True.
You see artists like Russ, like he'll put out a song every week. And the reason he does that, number one, is because he's trying to stack his catalog and get people familiar with his art, but it's also because he needs to stay relevant. And I think I found a balance where I can deliver quality and quantity. And my goal is, eventually when I break, quote unquote, break as an artist and become like, a big time major artist. When the people that discover me down the road, when they come back and say, yo, I like this guy, let me see what else he has, I'm going to give them a lifetime full of content that they can always come back. The other side of it is also, tomorrow's not promised, right? Both in terms of whether you're going to wake up in the morning and also whether you're going to be this inspired and whether you're going to be able to produce this quality of work. Tupac he had the foresight and the energy to actually create content to where we're hearing new music 25 years after he passed away. So for me, I want to, as long as I'm inspired and I can deliver quality content, I don't see any reason not to put it out.
I feel you on that. I feel you on that because I often dabble with that, even with what we're doing. Like, should we put out more than one episode? Should we tap into this, tap into that, talk about entertainment, talk about this and talking about that? And really, what I come to is just put out quality content and let the people that want to find it, and let it sit where it's going to be. You could be as meticulous as you want to be, but at the end of the day, man, if it feels good to you, then you have to release it to the people. And I wish more artists did that. They paid attention to the quality, but also didn't hold on to it to the moment, because this, to me, it seems like it's a lot of music left on the cutting room floor when you do that. And the things that you were passionate about, 3 months ago, is never going to see the light of day. And as an artist, sometimes you don't even know what's going to go. You know what I mean?
Paralysis by analysis, right? That's what they call in business.
Yeah.
And like Dr. Dre is a great example of that. Like, you get an album every 10, 15 years from now. And what I look at is, I don't think if he released any of the stuff that he didn't want to release, I think we would have reacted the same way to it. Like I'll look at, let's just take my last album. Let's take Soul Plane. If it took me 6 months, if I gave myself 6 months to create that, I did that album in 5 days, right? So if I took, let's say 5 months, it wouldn't have been any better than it was, right? Like you get to a point where you're only slowing down or controlling the supply side because you're trying to create some sort of artificial demand. Like, Nike can put out 1 million pairs of Concords when they release them, but they don't, right? Because they're trying to actually create more value, and they're artificially creating a market, right? So for me, this isn't business. This is something that I do because it feeds my soul. It's therapy for me. So I don't see the logic or the reason behind trying to do supply side control. If I feel it and if it comes to me, and it's quality, it's going out, man. I'm not pumping the brakes at all.
I feel you on that. That's dope. That's a dope way to be, man, and continue to do it, man, because I'm seeing you evolve even from when you started back in May of 2020. And I was reading your article that you had in the source in the album that they covered there. So I went to listen to a few songs from that. Then I went right back to Soul Plane, and I was like, this ain't the same guy. You know what I mean? And you've been honing your craft. It sounded good then in what you were saying, but now it's like you're so dialed in. It's almost like they have a super complex rhyme scheme. It's very social. It's very conscious. I mean, I just noticed today that you weren't even cursing in the songs. You know what I mean? Like, because the words were coming so rapidly and they were dope. You know what I mean? And then you have such a rhyme scheme. I liken it to Fred the Godson, like almost to where you having a conversation with yourself in the rhymes. Like how did you come to that style? Because you wasn't rapping like that a year ago. Like when did you say, yeah, this is gonna be my bread and butter right here? When did you come to that?
Yo, it's I can tell that you listen just by the Fred the Godson comparison, because he's somebody that I always admired. And like there's a lot of artists that have influenced me along the way. Like me as an artist, I'm an amalgam of Nas, Jay-Z, Big, Pac, all these guys. There were parts of their game that I was totally enamored by, and I tried to pick bits and pieces from these guys, and then add my own personal perspective and my own style to it. And the inflection point, like there's actually, like, if you listen to all of my stuff from last year to right now, I would say like right around probably the second one that I did this year, which was Barcode. That's kind of where the switch went off, and then I started saying I need to do something that is outside of the normal 16 bars, couple punchlines here. There's so many different things you can do that, as hip hop artists, we just take for granted. Like, we don't melodies, and it's like there's two categories. There's either these punchline guys that are trying to pack in as much wordplay as possible, or you have guys that are all melody. And I'm like, yo, there's so much space in between those two. So I started trying to figure out different ways to kind of bridge like the gap between the lyrical guys and kind of like this new wave sound. And I stopped looking at it like it's us against them. I'm like, yo, it's so hard for them to do what we do because they didn't grow up in the time that we grew up in, right?
Facts.
Like before Google, how can I expect them to put in the work? Because they've always been able to type it into a box and it comes up, right? So like, I can't blame them for if I was them and I grew up in this era, that might be what I would be creating. So, and I felt like there was an unnecessary separation, right? And I think that I saw us sounding like the guys that were above us. And they were like, what are you guys doing? This isn't music. This isn't, like that. I felt myself acting and feeling like that person. And I was like, yo, let me take a different approach. Let me listen to what these guys have. Because there's usable stuff. They make great music, right? It may not be exactly the stuff that I like, but there's parts of this that I can start using and incorporating. So that's kind of like when I started experimenting and kind of like going back using even some of the battle rappers, like the schemes that they used. It's so interesting because they don't have to stay on beat, right? So they can save so much more because those lanes aren't defined. The drums and the bass line and the hi-hats aren't there. So I'm like, let me start using kind of some of that into a song, put it into song structure. Let me start coming back and re-referencing a line that I just said and repurposing it, and then using an entendre where you would have to rewind it back and be like, hold on, what was that line? Let me hear that again. Oh, okay, I get it. And then even like plant something that they won't pick up until it's the 10th listen on the track, right? Like you're not.
And that's the beauty in it. That's the beauty in it. Like you still can go back to some Big and some J to this day and catch something that they were talking about when you were a little bit younger and in an experienced life. But now you caught a line that was so poignant, and now it's like, oh, you know what I mean? So you do that at times. Like I was trying to write down some things that you said, and I'm probably gonna butcher it. You know what I mean? But it's just so much that you say is many different layers. Like I said earlier, it's a complex rhyme scheme. So if you love bars and you love that battling type of vibe, but then you're hearing it on some smooth ass soulful shit, that's what you're gonna get from, Artificial. That's what you're gonna get from Soul Plane. That's what you're gonna get from Raise the Bar 2. It's just nothing but those type of things. And now I'm starting to see you do it a lot more with the more on Pluto in particular. On Artificial is where you kind of said it right off the jump that you can still be lyrical, but you can float on this smooth shit too, and you did it well. There's another song that you had on Soul Plane where and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like you were kind of rapping a little bit more up tempo, and then a lot of people on your IG were like, yo, I ain't see you rapping on this. You know exactly what song I'm talking about, right? Where you were kind of on fire. I think it's On Fire. That's the name of it. Yeah. So yeah, you were kind of doing that, and a lot of people were commenting like, I didn't see you doing it like this, but it works. It works. You know what I mean? And sometimes you got to do that.
What's crazy about that specific track? Sid Beats, he's a super dope producer out of Toledo, Ohio.
Okay.
I sent him the track, and said that he hated that beat until he actually heard my vocals on it, and he almost didn't post it. It just goes to show you, like I think there's a value in experimentation in art, right? We're insecure artists, just like generally speaking, we're very insecure. We want people to love our art, regardless what we say, right? We'll come out and be like, I don't care, this is for me, whatever. We want people to like it, right? We want that validation. So when we put something out, and like what he did in that case, I'm sure that he didn't see the finished product. Like he was part of the assembly line, and he created something, and he just put it to the side, and that product wasn't finished until it got painted up. And I like to challenge myself and say, okay, this is something that I don't think a traditional rapper or somebody that's in my vein would do. And it's a double-edged sword because you feel like you're making yourself very vulnerable when you actually experiment outside the box. But the songs that I get the best reception on are always the ones where I took myself out of my comfort zone. And this is an example. That song is an example of it right there.
So here's one where I think it wasn't out of the box, but everything married up. So it's Soul Plane, off Soul Plane. So it's like, and it seems smooth. So you say you win some, lose some. Life can be gruesome. Just make sure you grew some. You know what I mean? So those are some of the type of word plays that you're putting in there. So you're putting in a little nugget in there, but you're also on a very soulful beat, a very easily listenable beat to pretty much anybody that would listen to hip hop. So I think you're starting to blend a lot of these records together, where it's not just pigeonholing you into a quote unquote underground rapper, or you know what I'm saying, or boom bap, whatever that means. You know, I have my issues with people saying that all the time because they always try to put people in a box. But my thing is, like, for me personally, I like melodies. I like good hooks. Like, after a while, rapping really well can go out the window because it's like, can you make a song? You know what I mean? And I think that you, as well as Numbs, which you guys raise the bar to, you guys are making good songs now. It's not just like, this is just you guys barring us to death, even though we like that. We like that. Don't stop doing that. But it has to be a balance, you know what I mean? And how do you come into knowing that you can rap well, but providing balance? How do you come into a project?
That's a great question. So lyrical rappers, again, I'm using these terms generally, but like people that are quote unquote boom bap or East Coast or lyrical, we tend to always be trying to make people say wow, right? So I would liken it to like remember the M1 mixtape tour?
Yep.
Right? So they were highly specialized guys, skill set wise, right? And they did things that were absolutely amazing and, you know, like the edge of your seat, box office stuff. But those guys had a hard time playing in the league. How many of those guys besides Rafer Austin can actually play in the NBA? Right?
The only person I remember is Rafer.
Right. And then like the other guys like Lamar Odom and them, those guys are just guys that could play street ball, but that's kind of like the box that we fit in. I look at it like lyrical rappers are hot sauce, right? And Drake is Tony Parker, right? Who's the better player? Clearly Tony Parker.
Right.
The guy that can make the crowd ooh and ah. And we end up not seeing that part of that weakness in being a lyrical rapper. And we don't even develop the skill set that we need to write songs. Like songwriting is so much different than just punching in bars. You have to simplify things, right? There's a simplification, which is actually harder than complicating. Like it's inverse. Like you think that complicating is really the hard thing. No, the hard thing is saying this is the important part and identifying that and building around that. So like I had to, like when we were talking about how like my progression from Truth to Power to right now, that's one of the main things that I worked on was I need to be able to, it's called a hook because that's the part that hooks people, right? It's the part that is inviting. Everybody can sing it. So you have to take your foot off the gas at certain points. You can't always drive 100 miles an hour. So that's something I had to like honestly assess about myself artistically. Like I could bar you to death, but my hook game was weak, right? I really needed to work on that. So I spent time experimenting and kind of like devoting more attention to that part of it. And also when you do that, your beat selection changes, right? Because the guy that's trying to go ham on the beat is gonna pick a beat that lets him do that. You don't even want those gaps where like there's melody space available because you're like, that's a deficiency in my game. I don't even want that part at all, right? So even like you see my music choices between Truth to Power and Soul Plane, now I have these records that they allow you the latitude to be able to create the parts of the song that engage people, and you can still give them the bars because you still got that 16 before the hook comes on. And then even playing around with different hook structures. So I'm like, oh, let me hybrid this, right? Instead of writing a traditional hook, I'm gonna actually write an 8-bar verse that has hook elements in it, and I'm gonna use that to be the glue in between the verses. And I think that's something that I think is working out really well. And it strikes the balance between bars and vibes and good song structure.
And then when you perform, I've noticed it. I study the game tapes. When these cats perform, you're going to need a break. You're going to need people to sing your hooks, know your hooks, throw your microphone out there. You're not really throwing it out there because you want them to sing it. You're tired. You know what I mean? Like if you up there just rapping, you know what I mean? And nobody could really understand it. And that leads me to the next thing. It's the feeling. Like you could say a lot of words, but if I don't feel something from the song, whether it's the bridge, the hook, the words in a more simplified manner, then sometimes it can go over people's heads. And then you did all that work for what? You want them to feel you. So I think the balance is a good thing. You know what I mean? And you can curate that sound throughout many different projects. You know what I mean? You could split it up, bar them to death. It just depends on what you want to do. But balance is key. So I got some fun questions for you, man. So I gotta know, with all the basketball references that you throw on there, and I get a lot of them. We got the NBA playoffs. The first round is underway. Well, give me some of your picks starting in the Eastern Conference.
I think Brooklyn is the prohibitive favorite. I think they can afford to lose one of their big three and still be the prohibitive favorite. Like you've never really seen like that collection of talent. You got 2 former MVPs.
Yeah.
You have two scoring champs on the same lineup. You have different games in all 3 of them, right? You got Kyrie that's just gonna, he's box office. And then you got James Harden, who I think doesn't get credit for being able to adapt his game. I think he's really good at doing what's necessary. And I think people pay attention to the step back threes more than they do the assist that he's putting up and the space he's creating on the floor. And then you got KD, who's like a 7-foot guard, basically, on the perimeter. So, I mean, any given time, they can get a bucket. From inside, outside, you got Joe Harris on the perimeter just hanging around, but he can catch and shoot. I don't see anybody beating him. But that's why they play the games, right? You never know. Somebody could get hot. NBA is 7-game series, so you can't Eli Manning your way to 2 Super Bowls by just getting hot. Like,
yeah, I mean, totally different game in the NBA. You know what I mean? The best players normally win out. You know what I mean? It's not typically a team sport. If you can't stop that one guy that dominates, typically that team is going to win if they're worth a damn. They're role players. But to your Brooklyn point, I was thinking Milwaukee might be the only team that has 3 other guys that match up really well, and they may cancel each other out depending on how they go because Brooklyn can't defend. So, it's easy to say, hey, do the same thing Miami did to Giannis. But it's going to be difficult when you guys can't defend like Miami could defend. You know what I mean? So that's the only team I really, really, really see taking them to 6, maybe 7 if they meet up.
Yeah, and the thing that I give the Brooklyn Nets credit for is everybody can shoot in their stars, right? So any of them can have a bad game, and you got somebody that can give you 50. You got 2 other guys that can give you 50, and they can shoot the ball. Milwaukee, if Giannis was a little bit better of a shooter, I think it would just change. Like I think he would be so much. He would just be a walking bucket.
He'd be KD. A more athletic KD.
He'd be KD and a more, stronger, more dominating, kind of like physically dominating. But it's interesting, and I love the whole like the way that Adam Silver is he's kind of re-architecting everything. He's open to like the way that they did the All-Star game, right? So now you got an All-Star game where we would have never seen Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson on the same All-Star team. We would have never got to see like Paul Pierce and Kobe on the same team. But the way that he has it now, it just tells you that he's willing to innovate. He's willing to take pieces from other sports to engage the audience more. And like the playing, I think is really cool. That's something that
absolutely. I was not ever planning on watching the Sacramento Kings, the Pelicans, I don't know if they're your Wizards, but the Wizard, like this late in the season, like them guys would have been packed it up. But you had people from 7 to 12 still playing hard and still had the possibility of getting in. And basketball was worth watching prior to the playoffs actually kicking off. So I think it's going to be a good thing. And if they can do this mid-season playing to make it make sense for the players, I mean, it's going to come out to money. If the players can make more money, I'm sure they're going to want to do it. So you have Brooklyn coming out the East. What about the West?
I would have said I like the Clippers. The Clippers are acting like the Clippers, man. Like they're living up to like their historic, like, you know what I'm saying, like where they were always kind of perceived as a little brother. I mean, the talent is just like, I'm just like, how can you not make that work? That's the downside of the West. I'm really intrigued by Utah. I think that they surprised me. I thought that they were going to let up a little bit. I think they had a shot. I really liked Denver before Jamal Murray got hurt. I think there's a lot of injuries this year because they didn't have that downtime to kind of like rest up. You saw that with Clay. He went to the finals for 6 years in a row. They caught up with him. Jamal Murray just played how many 7-game series last year?
I want to say 3.
2 in a row?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, right. And then he had to turn right around and play a full season again, and the wear and tear is catching up. So I like the Nuggets before. Right now, I think LeBron. I don't like betting against him, man. I think that he has a gear that he can go to that everybody else doesn't necessarily have. I like the way Phoenix was playing. Like first game, they were really like confident. They didn't look like like a new team, like a young team that was coming in. I love Devin Booker's game, but if I had to bet on it, LeBron and AD is really hard to bet against them in 7-game series.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got those two meeting up in the finals, and at this point, man, KD proved it twice against LeBron, and I'm gonna have to take KD. You know what I mean? I think if they're both healthy, they're at their max peak. I think KD more of a killer than LeBron, and I don't want to bet against LeBron, but I just think that he got more in his package, and he's not afraid to get fouled. He's not afraid of the big moment. And not saying LeBron is, and maybe it's because he's hurt. But if you notice a lot of these games towards the end of the game, he's trying to pull up. He's not trying to go to the hole and make a business decision and have to hit that line. You know what I mean? And that's what I've always been like, man, you know what I mean? Like, I just wish he was unafraid to hit that line. Or else I'd have no problem picking him. But that's the problem I have when those two meet up.
Let me ask you a question. And I don't disagree with you, but just to play devil's advocate, when you said KD got LeBron, what do you mean?
I mean, those 2 shots consecutively in one of the most critical moments during them game in the finals, he dropped them off almost in identical spots.
Yeah, and you talking about in Cleveland when they were playing in Cleveland, right?
Yeah, and it was almost in identical spots where he knocked them jumpers down to eliminate any type of comeback. Like, he has that dog in him. And LeBron has a shit ton of game winners. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel like when it comes toe to toe, there's nothing that KD can't do that I'm not confident in. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost every shot that leaves his hand, I believe is going in. Not so much with Bron. Not so much with Bron.
That's fair, but LeBron beat him when they were in Miami, right? So LeBron got a chip over him, right? Do you remember the starting lineup for the Miami Heat besides LeBron and besides the big three? Like, remember the other people that were on that team?
Yeah, Mario Chalmers. Yeah, yeah, what was Shane Battier?
You see what I'm saying? When KD did it, he had Klay Thompson, 60 points in 3 quarters, Steph Curry, right? So I think they're tied. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would say that they're tied. It's 1-1. So we got to see. Like, this is the tiebreaker right here.
This should even it out because they both got loaded squads. So this should even it out. All right, let's move on to hip hop, man. What's your top 5 in hip? Well, before we go on your top 5, we'll wait for that. Who are some artists that you listen to that people wouldn't think that you listen to that you enjoy?
Just music in general.
Music. You can stay in hip hop wherever you want to go.
Man, somebody that you probably wouldn't think I listen to. In hip hop, there's some people that I think are under the radar. That some hip hop heads might know. Like, I'm a big fan of Nocturnal.
Okay.
West Coast rapper. Huge fan of his work, man. I think he's like a guy that didn't really get the shine that he deserves for his creativity and like the level of artistry that he brought. Devin the Dude, somebody from our generation might know who he is and understand like how much he contributed. But just a totally, like, if you showed me that album cover before I heard who he was, I would have been like, yo, this isn't even worth like 5 minutes of my time to hear what he had to say. But he's honestly like one of them guys, if you looked at my Spotify all time, he's up there on like the play count. And who else? I like UGK. They're not lyrical per se, but I think the Underground Kings, the Ride and Dirty album, like, I played that thing to death, like, you know, and it was such a really well developed and planned project. Like, sonically, it's timeless. Like, I could throw that on right now, and it's just as good as it was when they released it. I think in '96 or '97. Yeah, so that's like I don't think people would have thought that I listened to.
Yo, what? Why do you think that it's so hard for? I guess I won't call you a hip hop elitist, but this is what I call the people who champion just lyrics only, as if they don't like the vibe, go out, have a good time, and you're not listening to Nas, you know, on Miami Beach. You know what I mean? You're just not. You know what I mean? What do you think it is about us as hip hop heads who are afraid to say, yeah, I listen to some Wiz Khalifa, or, you know what I mean, insert rapper that is making bangers when you're out and about? What do you think it stops us from giving those same guys, you know, a little bit of credit?
This is a great question. I think that hip hop, more than any other genre of music, we create these identities for ourselves, and we categorize ourselves as being this type of fan, right? Like, not just the artist, not like, oh, he's a backpack rapper, he's a club rapper, he's a trap rapper. We go as far as to categorize ourselves as the consumers of the art form, and we create these constructs around this identity, and then some of us do it to the point where we're always trying to validate, like, the table that we're sitting at. If hip hop was a lunchroom, like, this is the table I'm sitting at. I'm sitting with Mos Def, Talib, Black Thought, Common Sense, Dead Prez. Like, that's who I am, right? So me acknowledging anybody else is taking away from my validation, right? And we even do this with the age thing, right? Like,
because I like a lot of these young dudes. I really do. Like, sometimes I'm not in the mood to listen to nothing but lyrics. Sometimes I would just want to hear ignorant stuff, and that's fine. I describe hip hop as like a cast of comic book heroes. You know what I mean? Everybody has different superpowers, and it's okay to like these different guys. You know what I mean? Because it's for different moods. You might be in the gym. You might be on a, riding around doing errands. You might be on a road trip. You might be traveling on a plane. Like, it's different vibes for everybody. You know what I mean? So I hate pigeonholing myself to just one type of hip hop. You know what I mean? Because I often tell people, we can listen to hip hop and not listen to any other genre if you really want to think about it, man. You have Kid Cudis, you have the Nas's, you have the Wiz Khalifas, you have the Currencies, you have the Kendrick Lamars, the Coles, Wale's. Those are all different types of vibes. You know what I mean? And you don't even have to leave the hip hop umbrella as a whole. So I just wish we championed everybody more so in our respective corners. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I also think that it comes from both sides. I think you got young guys that say we don't want to hear all that science. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to hear that knowledge. Like, we're just trying to have a good time, and that's what music is to them. And then you got guys that are older that are trying to persevere. Like, we're trying to champion like what it was. I look at it like we lived through a different era, right? Like, me and you, we lived in an era where they called hip hop a fad, right?
Yeah.
So we had to fight C. Dolores Tucker. We had to fight Dionne Warwick. We had to fight all, like, Congress, right? We had to fight the FBI sending letters to NWA, right? So we were like, I'm not trying to equate the civil rights movement, but the same kind of friction that any kind of movement has, the people that are on the front end of it are the ones that actually have to go and fight through that resistance. So we feel like we invested so much, and we were part of the struggle. And like, now hip hop is a whatever $1 billion industry, but we lived through the era where they didn't think it was going to last another year, right? And we put our money and our energy and our resources behind it. We all communally did that to make hip hop what it is today. And I think some of it is us feeling resentment towards them for not appreciating that or acknowledging that. And I think some of it is because, like, think of the pioneers of hip hop, right? Think of Black Rob. He's not a pioneer, but he's somebody that he gave so much of his life was devoted to hip hop, and he died relatively
young,
in poverty, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the guys that lived through that look at the people that are getting popping off a hashtag, right? And they're looking at it like, yo, you don't understand how many people had to put down bars, how many people had to go and, like, fight the police and had to do all these things to allow you to be able to dye your hair and put a red rag on and all of a sudden get 100 million views. And that's kind of like the back and forth. But, the truth is always in the middle, right? Like, it's not their fault. They were born there. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just lucked out. They came in a time where the groundwork was laid. So they're doing what they're supposed to do with it. And at the same time, they have, I would say, the young guys, they would have to be like, yeah, we respect you. We don't have to like you. We don't have to listen to your music, but we acknowledge your contribution and we acknowledge the fact that you held the door open for us to bum our street.
True indeed. True indeed. All right. So I'm gonna jump out of hip hop, and I got 2 more questions for you. So I was watching your Great Minds podcast interview, and you guys got into some of my favorite shows in terms of The Wire and Snowfall. And I was waiting for that question, but it came up recently. So you guys did that interview, and shout out to Great Minds Podcast. Man, they doing a great job over there. So the question that came up recently in the last couple of weeks with the season finale of Snowfall is, what's the better series, Snowfall or The Wire? What's your take on that?
Oh man, you hitting home runs all day. That's actually okay. I'm gonna go with The Wire. Okay, and the reason I'm gonna say The Wire is because the way they told the story was, from season 1, they gave you kind of the bird's eye view, right? Season 2 was, how did the drugs come in? So it was based Port of Maryland and how the drugs are coming into the community.
And I feel like you needed the docs.
Nobody understood, right? They just understood that there was a problem. They didn't understand the genesis of the problem, right? So it's easy to point fingers when you only know, certain players in the actual transaction, right? So, and then season 3 was the guy going to jail. Like at the end of season 2, they went to jail, right? So it's the jail experience, and coming out, and then all the things that happen in the neighborhood while you're in jail. Somebody else. Now Marlowe's the guy, right? So you got to come back and you got to deal with Stringer's trying to go legit, right? And he's buying up real estate, but you are. And then so you got Avon trying to be a gangster, and then Stringer's trying to get out, but the corporate dudes and Clay Davis are exploiting him and using him for whatever. And then he wants to be a gangster now all of a sudden. And Avon's like, nah, I thought we weren't gangsters anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
Side of it, right? And then the season 4 was like the kids. So it showed you the school. Like, where does this come from? Where is this renewable source of human capital that's coming into the drug game, right? And you saw Michael saying, nah, I don't want to do it, right? And he's the guy that lived through all the way through.
Yeah.
And you see all the other guys and how, and then season 5 was like the media side of it, right? So they gave you every angle, like the media, the politics, the drugs, the cops, law enforcement. So I think the way that they told the story, it painted a more complete picture than Snowfall.
Yeah, and there's no disrespect to Snowfall. Snowfall is awesome in its own right, but I could imagine if The Wire was shot in this day and time, how much better they could have even probably told the story with all at their disposal. But my last one before we let you go is the age-old.
Hold on, before you say that, you know what the common denominator was between the two, right? It's Michael Hyatt, the actress that played Brianna and the actress that played Cece. She's the golden ticket, man.
She is the bridge.
So it's a classic.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, man. But like I was saying before I let you out of here, man, I got the age-old question, but I'll add a twist to it. Your personal top 5, and then the follow-up is the top 5 right now in the game.
Okay, all-time top 5, Jay-Z, Nas, Biggie, Tupac, and for me, I know this is like a lot of people don't agree with this, but to me, just musically, Eminem, he did things that I had never seen before in hip hop, and I've never seen since. I think he brought an honesty, and like he made himself so many different. He was like a comic book, right? Like hip hop was always this hardcore. I can never self-deprecate, and like what he did in 8 Mile, when he owned it, like when Bunny Rabbit did that last round with Papa Doc, like he literally did that with hip hop, which is the hardest genre of music and culture to make fun of yourself. And to take that risk, and it may not have been a risk, some people might look at it like, yo, that's the thing that made him get the attention that he got. But just artistically to deliver at that level, like between Slim Shady and Eminem show, including the 8 Mile soundtrack, I think he did things creatively that nobody's ever done. So he'll make my top 5.
Okay, in top 5 now.
I mean, you say now.
The artist that's doing it. In your opinion, the artists that are doing it right now, overall, in whatever criteria you put the rap guys in, who's your top 5 now?
All right, I would say these are like my favorites. Skyzoo. Never heard a weak verse from him.
Never, me neither.
His consistency, yeah.
Dear Whoever, still one of my favorite. Dear Whoever, still one of my favorite songs. I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's so many projects that like I can just hit play on his Spotify. It's all going to be good. I think Cole is. Sometimes I feel like he's overrated. Sometimes I feel like he's underrated. All I know is that he's great. You know what I'm saying? And he's consistent. There are things that I like more. Some projects I like more or less. Just like with every artist, I don't like every single J album. He's my favorite rapper of all time. There's albums that I didn't really enjoy that much, but I think he's undeniably great. I like Kendrick. I think Kendrick has an honesty and a humility to him that is pretty rare for like his generation of rappers. I'm a big fan of Graf. I don't think a lot of people really. He's not on their radar if they're not like super like plugged in New York kind of lyrical rap consumers. Like he's super versatile. I can get an Eminem record from him. I can get a Scarface record from him. He can give you so many different looks, and his versatility is like off the charts. And I also like. I think Fabulous is this guy that crosses generations, right? Like he's one of those guys that he's really from our generation, but it's really hard to find a young person that doesn't rock with him.
Right.
And so like I think he's done something. He figured out how to bridge like Jay-Z and Mace, like, and he created like this thing that's always going to be just even his voice, the way it prints on a record. You can just put him on anything. It'll sound good. And then Jada, man.
Top 5 Dead or Alive.
One of the guys. Yeah.
Another.
One more is I think another guy that doesn't get a lot of credit is Busta. I think Busta's done amazing work. His catalog is like it's
second to none.
Find somebody that can go.
Yeah, it's second to none. Like I know a lot of people had some issues with his last project, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. To me, it had replay value even to this day. You know what I mean? He's still rapping it as well as he does, man. And that's just being a true master at your craft, man.
Yeah, totally agree, bro.
But yo, with that said, man, Abel, man, I appreciate you for the time, man. I'm glad we was finally able to do this, man, with no technical difficulties, man. But before I let you go, man, I'll give you a chance to plug where everybody can find your latest projects, the names of them, your social media. I know we have it up here for everybody to check out, but I'll leave you to close us out.
Yeah, my socials are all the same, so that the ABEL MERI, you can find me on any platform. Music is streaming everywhere: Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal. Just FYI, like if you really like an artist and you want to support them, download instead of stream, because the streaming numbers are not anywhere near what you get on the actual download. And to really, really help is to buy it on the website of the artist. So wherever they sell their merch or wherever they have their own official artist website, if you buy it there's no split. They get 100% of the money. So ABELMERI.com again. You can find my whole catalog up there, and I appreciate the love, the support that I've been getting, and I appreciate what y'all are doing. This podcast is really something that I look forward to. All your little clips and the production value that you put into it, the time, it really shows. And I think everybody's actually getting a lot of entertainment value from the content you're creating.
Appreciate it, good brother. And with that said, I'm Cash, one half of the Don't Sleep on the Couch podcast team. Go stream Soul Plane now. Go stream Artificial now. When you get done with that, go stream everything he has, and I guarantee you will not be disappointed.